So I was raised as a cradle Anglican, and like all good cradle Anglicans, I was a server in my church. And one particular morning, I was serving at the 8 a.m. service, and I was sitting in my chair, and the 8 a.m. service is a BCP service at my home parish. At least it was for a long time. And I often got lost in the prayers because I didn't understand how the pages worked in the BCP at the time. I got it now, don't worry. But on this one particular Sunday, I was sitting there, and hanging next to the server's seat was a big banner. It had fringe on the bottom of it, and I recall playing with the fringe. That's what I used to do to occupy myself. And the priest was preaching at this particular time. Clearly, I was still paying attention, even though I was playing with the fringe, because I remember that the priest was talking something along the lines of who we are called to be as Christians or what we are called to do. Because in my mind, sitting in that chair, I began to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. What kind of career was I going to have when I grew up? My mother tells me that I started serving around the age of 10, so I suspect I was around 12 or 13 when I was having this thought in my head. And I looked towards the priest and I said, well, I could do that. And immediately replaced that thought with, no, I can't. In an instant, my mind was changed just because of that phrase, no, I can't. I don't know why I thought in that moment that I couldn't become a priest. I have a couple of theories. One is that up until that point, I had not seen a female priest. Believe it or not, I had yet to see a female priest in my time there. The other theory I have is that I had no idea what a priest did outside of Sunday morning worship, so I wasn't entirely sure what I'd be getting myself into. As I grew up and grew older and my calling became stronger, I know that that can't stay present in my head because of fear. I had a lot of fears when it came to accepting my call, and it became really prevalent around the age of 20, 21. I was attending an undergraduate university, and I remember wrestling with this, and my fear was that I didn't know how other people would react. I was afraid of how my friends would react. Would they still want to be my friends if I became a priest? I remember being scared of how my parents would react. We had big plans for me to take over the family pharmacy, and you can't do that and be a priest at the same time, I don't think. I'm not entirely sure. And so I remember being afraid of what they would think. I also remember being very afraid for myself because I still didn't know what it meant to be a priest. I did recall that line from the Book of Common Prayer, help us to live a godly, righteous, and sober life. And at 20 years old in university, I was not convinced that I was capable of doing that. I'm not convinced now that I can still do that, but I am trying. And I try, and I try. Somewhere along the way, that I can't turned into I have to try, which eventually turned into I can. But that word, can't, held me back for a long time. And so today, that's what I want to talk to you about. Stop saying can't. The word can't denotes an inability to do something. And I have been taught that with God, all things are possible. And if we are Christians, then that means we cannot use the word can't. One of my passions is in youth ministry. And one of the experiences I have in youth ministry is that we hear the word can't far more often than in any other form of ministry. That's my experience. And I say that because youth are wrestling with their own self-doubt. So they're telling themselves that they can't do certain things. And then they're having doubt imposed upon them by the adults in their congregations, their church, their communities, their school, even in the media, right? Who are saying, you can't do that, or you're not good enough to do that. So they have it coming at them from all angles, which is unique, I think. In their youth, people are wrestling with their own period of self-discovery. They're trying to figure out who they are. And by telling them what they can or cannot do, we are imposing our own judgment or our own boundaries on them. Now, this is not a new problem in youth ministry. This is not a new phenomenon. I recall my father telling me a story of when he was a young boy in church and in his youth group, and they were playing basketball in the parish hall, and some of the older members of the congregation told them that they can't play basketball in the parish hall. Now, that might seem like a reasonable request to you to not play basketball in the parish hall. However, in this particular parish hall, it was a very large parish hall, and mounted at either end of the parish hall were basketball hoops. The facilities existed. In fact, the facilities were designed to have basketball played in them, and they are being told that, no, you can't play basketball. That's very similar, I think, to what's happening in youth ministry to a certain degree. We have, within our youth, gifts, talents, abilities, and facilities that are not being used. Not because we can't use them, but because we won't use them. I think that in many cases, we are being held back by our own fears of what will happen if we allow youth to run with these ideas that they have. One of my experiences with the Anglican Church, which I absolutely have come to appreciate the diversity of, is that we are very tied to our books. And we are very tied to the way our churches look and how they are set up. And I'm not necessarily saying that that is a bad thing, but I am saying that we need to give our youth, and in fact all of ourselves, permission to explore new possibilities. We need to stop saying can't without a good reason for it. And so my suggestion is this: what if we stopped saying can't and replaced it with a different phrase, such as what if? Let's talk about it. Let's see. What would happen if we started using those phrases instead of can't? Can't is so finite. It's so finite. All those other phrases open up a pathway for conversation. And so if we start using those phrases, we can begin to have conversations. We can begin to explore those ideas, and we can begin to feed off of the energies of one another. A number of years ago, we had a visioning day for the young people in our diocese. And outside of that visioning process that was taking place, a side conversation began to happen. And it was that the youth were really excited to be together. Because let's face it, youth are in the minority in our congregations. And for some of them, this was the first time that they had met other teenagers who were Christian. And they were really excited about it because all of a sudden they weren't alone. They had someone who they could talk to about their faith, about God and church, and not be made fun of for it and not be fearful for it. And so they expressed to those of us who were leading the visioning day that they wanted to get together every year and do this. We could have said in that moment, we can't do that. Because putting together that visioning day, which was only a 2-day thing, was a lot of work. It was a lot of headaches, it was a lot of paperwork, it was a lot of coercing of trying to get people involved in it. We could have said can't. But instead, a group of us said, well, let's try it. And we committed to do it for 1 year. That was it. We said, we'll try it for 1 year and we'll see how it goes and we'll see what happens. In 2 weeks, we'll be holding our 13th youth conference in this diocese that resulted because of that. The conference looks different than what it did the first year that it took place. It has moved around the diocese, it has done different things, it has explored different ideas. Every year, we ask the youth, what do you want to talk about? And we have conversations with them about what is important to them, what do they want to talk about, what do they want to explore. And we never say we can't. Rather, we have those conversations with one another. I'm not saying that every can't will turn into we can. But it can certainly become a let's try, let's see. It can become a conversation where we grow together with one another, exploring possibilities, exchanging ideas, getting to know one another, growing in fellowship, even sharing our fears that hold us back. But it all starts by stop saying can't. Thank you.